Hi, welcome to Board Games Explained. My name is Zach, and today we'll be looking at the 2012 German Game of the Year, Kingdom Builder, published by Queen Games and designed by Donald X. Vaccarino. Kingdom Builder is a 2 to 4 player game where players will place settlements on various terrain types in order to get the most gold. Let's take a look at setup. To begin setup, have every player select a color and give them the 40 corresponding settlements and gold marker in that color. Select any of the 4 game boards and place them together like this. Do note that you can orient the board section however you like, so as long as the board fits together like so. Then take one of the unused game boards, flip it over, and reveal the score tracker side. This board will be used for keeping track of each player's goal. Each player should take their respective goal marker and place it on the black space. Now grab the 4 summary location tiles that match the location hexes on the board. Keep in mind that these are only for a reference, so it does not matter where they are placed. Now, place 2 location tiles on each of the corresponding location hex spaces. Remember, the castle hex locations will not have any tiles that match. Locate the deck of cards with a green back, shuffle them, and deal one out to each player. These are the terrain cards and will dictate where players can place their settlements during the game. Find the deck of cards with the red back, shuffle them, and deal 3 face up in front of every player. These will determine how players get gold and score points at this game. To complete setup, give the oldest player the star player tile, and they will start the game, and now you're ready to begin play. On a player's turn, they must take the mandatory action of playing their terrain card, and then placing 3 settlements that match the terrain on the board. There is a catch to this, however, in that a player must always place adjacent to existing settlements on the board, if possible. There can only be 1 settlement on each space. Here's an example of this. The active player plays a forest terrain card. They do not have any existing settlements on forest, so they can place wherever they want. The second one must be adjacent to this forest terrain tile, and the third can be adjacent to either or both. If a player cannot place a settlement adjacent to an existing settlement on the board, then they can place their settlement on any space that matches the terrain card that was just played. Let's take a look at an example of this. The active player plays a desert terrain card. The active player cannot place next to their other adjacent settlements because this particular region is filled. The active player can now place on any other desert hex space, providing there is no other open desert space next to any of the other existing settlements. It is also worth mentioning that placing your settlements adjacent to any other existing settlements also applies for any terrain type. As an example, the active player has a settlement in the flower field terrain hex spaces. The player then plays a canyon terrain card. They would have to place their settlements on the canyon space adjacent to their flower field. A player can only play on these hex spaces: grass, canyon, desert, flower field, and forest. You can never build on top of a mountain, location tile hex, or a castle hex. And they can never place on a sea hex unless you have the harbor. But we will get to that later. In the rare chance that there are no eligible hex spaces for the active player to play their settlements on, that player removes the card from the game and draws a new terrain card, repeating this process until they can. If a player builds a settlement next to a location hex space, the player will take one of the corresponding location hex tiles. Each player can only get 1 location hex tile per space though. To demonstrate this, let's use the tower location as an example. The active player plays a grass terrain card and builds their 3 settlements around the tower. Despite having built multiple settlements adjacent to the tower, they would still only get 1 tower location tile. You can have more than one of a particular location hex tile as long as you have a settlement or settlements that are adjacent to the same location hex on a different location. In this example, the active player has 2 settlements touching 2 separate Oasis hex spaces. They can take 1 tile from each, but never both from one. If you move all settlements touching a location hex space away from that space, the corresponding extra action tile is discarded from the game and can no longer be used. This would occur if you used an extra action tile to move an existing settlement away. The location tiles you collect will give you extra actions that will grant you various abilities. You can choose to use as many or as few as you want on any given turn, but they cannot be used on the same turn you just collected it. Each tile can only be used once a turn. It is also important to note that you can do these extra actions in any order you choose, either before or after using your mandatory action. This includes placing all 3 settlements during the mandatory action before using any extra actions to interrupt this. Additionally, extra actions that allow you to place new settlements must follow the rules of adjacency and therefore would have to be placed next to existing settlements if applicable. If an extra location action allows you to place a new settlement and you place one next to a location space, you get that tile. To indicate whether or not a location action has been used, keep the picture side up to show it that has not been used. When using that action, flip it up so the pictogram side is showing. I will go over all the extra actions at the end of the video, but it is important to remember that this rule of adjacency still applies to these abilities. A player's turn ends when they have taken their mandatory action, plus any extra actions they choose to do. To end a turn, a player discards their terrain card and draws a new one. Then they will flip any used extra action tiles back to the picture side, as they can be used each turn. If the draw deck runs out, take the discard pile, shuffle it, and create a new draw deck from this. Then, in clockwise order, the next player will take their turn. The game ends when a player has placed their last settlement. Note that you will finish the current round you are in, that way every player gets an equal number of turns. Players will then get gold based off a couple of things. The first thing you will score is castles you are adjacent to. Players will get 3 gold for each castle they are adjacent to. You will get 3 gold if you are adjacent to a castle, but not for each settlement adjacent to that castle. In this example, the player would get 6 points because they are touching this castle and this castle. They would not score multiple times for having multiple settlements adjacent to that castle. The other way you will get gold is based off the Kingdom Builder cards. Each player will get gold by meeting the criteria on the cards. I will go over each Kingdom Builder card at the end of the video. The player with the most gold at the end of the game is the winner. If 2 or more players are tied, they share the victory. A key note about scoring is that when 2 or more settlements become connected, they now become a settlement area. As long as a settlement is adjacent to another settlement in the settlement area, they are all connected. This will make more sense when you take a look at the Kingdom Builder cards. If you would like to know how each Kingdom Builder card and extra action location work, keep watching. Otherwise, they can be found at the end of the rulebook for quick reference. We will now look at the extra location tile actions in detail. We will first go over the 5 extra action tiles that allow you to build more settlements. You will notice that the iconography will show a curved arrow to distinguish that a player is placing a new settlement. The Oracle tile allows you to play an additional settlement that matches the terrain type of the card you just played. As an example, if you played a desert terrain card, you can place a 4 settlement in a desert region. The Farm tile allows you to place one of your settlements on a grass space. The Oasis tile allows you to place one of your settlements on a desert space. The Tavern tile allows you to build a settlement on the end of a string of at least 3 or more of your own settlements. The settlement place must make the line stay straight. Here's an example of how this works. A settlement can be placed here or here along this horizontal line because there's at least 3 settlements. A settlement could also be placed on this diagonal line because there's also at least 3 settlements. We will now be looking at the extra action tiles that allow you to move your settlements. The iconography will have a straight arrow to show this. First up is the Barn tile. The barn allows you to move one of your existing settlements to a hex space that matches the terrain type of the terrain card just played. So in this example, a grass was played, so I can move this desert settlement to this grass hex right here. The moved settlement must be moved to a hex space adjacent to one of your other settlements if possible. The harbor allows you to move any one of your existing settlements to a C hex space. The moved settlement must be moved to a hex space adjacent to one of your other settlements if possible. This is the only way to get a settlement on a C hex space. In this example, I can move this settlement onto this C hex space because it is adjacent to one of my other existing settlements. The paddock tile allows you to move an existing settlement exactly 2 spaces away in a straight line. You can move through any terrain type, including mountains, sea, castle, and location tiles. However, the building could not end up on one of these. The moved settlement does not have to be adjacent to any of your other settlements. Let's take a look at how the paddock works. You can move the settlements as such. This is a legal move because it is exactly 2 spaces away and in a straight line. This is also a legal move because it is 2 spaces away and in a straight line, even though you're moving over water. This is not a legal move, however, because even though it is 2 spaces away, it did not move in a straight line. Remember, these actions can be taken before or after the mandatory action. They can also be done in any order you choose. In addition, you may choose not to use the given action on a particular turn. We will now look at the 10 Kingdom Builder cards. You will only use 3 in any game, and these will determine how players will score points throughout. The first Kingdom Builder card is the Fisherman. Each player will get 1 gold for each of their settlements that are adjacent to a C hex space. Each settlement can only be worth 1 gold, even if it is adjacent to multiple C hex spaces. So in this example, these 2 settlements are worth 1 gold, and this one is worth none. The next Kingdom Builder card we are going to look at is the Miners. The Miners card works very similar to the Fisherman card. Each player will get 1 gold for each of their settlements that is adjacent to a mountain hex space. Each settlement can only get 1 gold, even if they are adjacent to more than 1 mountain hex. In this example, these 2 settlements are worth 1 gold, while this one is worth no gold. The next Kingdom Builder card we will look at is the Workers. The Workers card also works very similar to the previous 2. Each player will receive 1 gold for each of their settlements that are adjacent to a castle hex or a location hex. So in this example, these 2 settlements are worth 1 gold each, and these 3 settlements are worth 1 gold each. This is in addition to the 3 gold that the player would receive for being adjacent to a castle hex. For the Discoverers card, each player will get 1 gold for each horizontal line they have a settlement on. In this example, the player would get 4 gold because they have at least 1 settlement built on this horizontal line, this line, this line, and this line. Keep in mind that you only need 1 settlement on this horizontal line to score a gold. The Knights card also looks at where players have built on horizontal lines. Each player will find the horizontal line where they have the most settlements. They will get 2 gold for each settlement on that particular horizontal line. In this example, the player would score 12 gold because they have 6 settlements on this horizontal line. Keep in mind that these 2 horizontal lines will not score. With the Hermit's card, each player will receive 1 gold for each settlement area they have. A settlement area is a group of settlements adjacent to each other. A single settlement also makes up a settlement area. In this example, the player would score 3 gold because they have this settlement area here, this settlement area here, and this settlement area here. The Citizen card scores the opposite of the Hermit's card. Each player will locate their largest settlement area, and they will get 1 gold for every 2 settlements in this settlement area. In this example, the player would get 6 gold because there are 12 settlements. Keep in mind that if you have an odd number, you always round down. For the Lord's card, we will be looking at each quadrant of the board. Each player will count the number of settlements they have in each quadrant. The player with the most will get 12 gold. If there is a tie for most, all tied players get 12 gold. Then, the player or players with the second most will get 6 gold. For this example, the orange player would get 12 gold, while the blue player would get 6. This player would get none. Then repeat this process for each other quadrant of the game board. The Farmer's card also deals with each quadrant of the board. Each player will get 3 gold for each settlement in the quadrant where they have the fewest settlements. So for this example, the player has the fewest number of settlements in this section. This player would get 6 gold. If you have a tie for the section with the fewest settlements, you will still earn only gold for one of those sections. A player must have at least 1 settlement in each section to score gold for this card. For the Merchant's card, players will want to connect location and or castle hex spaces to one another. Each player will earn 4 gold for each castle and location hex space that is connected with at least one other location or castle hex space. Each castle or location hex can only get you 4 gold, even if it is connected to multiple castle or location hex spaces. In this example here, the player would score 12 points because these 3 locations are connected to at least one other castle or location hex. That concludes today's explanation. We hope you enjoyed this video, and we hope you enjoyed Kingdom Builder. If you have any questions or would like us to cover a specific game, please leave a comment below. If you liked this video, please consider subscribing and sharing with friends. Thanks for watching.